So in 2021, we were going through our data because 2021 was a really heavy year, and looking at the members of our community that had died that year in 2021. And when we were looking at this data that we have to submit at the end of the year, we realized that every person that died that year died either as a result of their poverty, substance abuse, or taking their own life. No one in our community that died lived their full potential, lived their full life. And so that year, coming off of COVID, all the things that were going on in our world, our staff kind of looked at each other and said, hey, we're not going to make it if we have to keep burying our friends. So how do we do something about this? And so with Julia and some of the pastors from Moody Methodists and other partners in the community, we wrote a grant and worked with UTMB to purchase this frat house, like you do, right? So that was the solution to our problems, and thought, what if we opened a sort of bridge housing program where folks could transition off the streets, stay for an extended period of time, longer than our short-term kind of shelter stays on the island, and actually have a chance to rest, to get out of the poverty mindset, and to be able to either go back to school, go back to work, or have a safe place to apply for government assistance and disability benefits. One of those folks that died that year was a guy named David McLaurin, who is an instrumental person in our community, kind of a larger-than-life personality. He was a barber, so he cut my hair for a long time. David was really sick. Because David was really sick, David couldn't work. And because David couldn't work, David couldn't get insurance. And because David couldn't get insurance, David was really sick. And because David was really sick, and you can see how that cycle kind of happens. And so he had some gastrointestinal things going on, and when David was discharged from the hospital the last time, we met him in a hotel room where this man who was 6'3" weighed 82 pounds. It's the closest thing I've ever seen to like a living skeleton. And so thankfully, through the work of UTMB social work and whatnot, we were able to get David into a place where about 2 weeks later he died, inside, off the streets, with dignity and all of that. But I think that if this would have existed, David might still be around today. Still cutting my hair, still laughing and enjoying Funyuns and all the things that David did. And so we named this David's House, both in honor of David and the life that he lived, but also as sort of a reminder to us about the importance of this work and calling us towards health in the broadest sense possible, really thinking about our community as a whole, especially with an eye towards those that have been overlooked and underserved.
I've been here a year, and the first thing I noticed about Galveston was the unconditional love in the community, at the church, and the way they were treated by not only the church staff, but at Grace Clinic. I've been doing this 13 and a half years, as I said, in Houston, and the attitudes here were totally different. I was so shocked, I actually made a joke. Is this a joke? Am I being filmed? That everybody was so loving. So that within itself inspired me to really learn Galveston and their unsheltered population, as it was so different. We lead with love and understanding. This housing program is totally different, as we don't have as many rules. We want you to, this is your place while you're here. It's going to be as close as you living on your own as we can possibly get, so it won't be a big transition when you have your own place. That was my biggest problem in Houston. People would get out these programs with all these rules, and they'd only have their apartment for 2 or 3 weeks. So I figured the best thing would be to make it as close to them living on their own as possible. We've been doing great. We have 3 successful discharges within 7 months, and we have someone moving out on July 1st. I think the biggest thing is being comfortable. We don't want anyone walking on eggshells. Everybody makes mistakes. When you're on your own, you're gonna make mistakes. Making mistakes does not mean that you're gonna lose. Well, it depends on the mistake, I guess. Most mistakes, it's just a mistake, and we're gonna get through it. But it was important for me for people to feel comfortable, feel loved, and feel supported. They know that they are just as they should be allowed anything that anybody else has. So day to day, when people move in, usually we have an assessment. We're figuring out where they're gonna work, how they're gonna work, what they wanna do, if they need disability. So when I first talk to someone, if they're willing to work, or they are able to work is trying to find a fit for what would be a good place for employment. We've had great success with Arlen, so the manager there, the owner there, is like, anybody that you need a job, send them to me, because
Shout out to Arlen.
everybody's still there working that has started with us. We had a young man on the port. He's now working in Houston. He got a supervisor job at the port. So we're just doing great things, and just understanding how trauma affects everyday life.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear y'all talk about just the wholeness of person, because I think that's something that y'all at GH Plus do really, really well. At Central, of course, also in Grace Clinic, but I think the very model of the community here at GH Plus is centered around dignity and about this respect for personhood as a whole. So I'd love for you to talk about that, because I think that's really what public health is trying to get everyone to understand more about also, is that people's health is tied to the wholeness of person.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
when we first started here, we received a lot of donations. And I think I was kind of getting the bad because I didn't really want the donations, but I wanted everyone to have stuff new, because I want them to go into the thought process, I deserve the best, I deserve new stuff as I'm moving into our new facility. And it does tie in a lot, because that ties in with mental health. Because if you feel like you're always getting hand-me-downs, that's where your thought process is going to stay. And even with interview clothes, and I know I came in kind of fast, blah, 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 but it's because I want the best for them. I want them to feel that they are the best. And if a pair of shoes or a new dress will make you ace an interview and makes you feel better about yourself, then that's what I felt that we should do. So many times I've had participants that are here, they're our family members, so that I've had family here tell me, I haven't felt this way in a long time, or I feel like a new person and stuff like that. So that ties into the mental health, because if we're stimulating them mentally and they're feeling good about themselves, it often aids in other areas. So
Yeah. I think what Leah's done so well is to create, you used the word family when we were talking, right? So this is a place that focuses on belonging first, and then all the other programs sort of emerge from that. So the first thing we want to do is make sure you feel comfortable, you feel welcome, and then provide these programs that don't just look like job readiness or employment training or mental health classes or whatever that might be. But it's like the community garden that we have out back, right, where folks can actually put their hands in the dirt. Which when we think about health, we may not think about, nutrition, maybe think about food stuff, but there's something about, I think about Mr. Deng out there eating all of the vegetables, right? But he got to grow them himself, and that was a significant thing. Or, Austin, you've been helping us with the chess club, right? There's something about the bonds that form, and especially the bonds that cross like that demographic divide that remind people on both sides that they're human, there's something to be learned. I have something to offer in this space as a chess, opponent kind of thing. And I think the meals that Lee does too, y'all eat together pretty regularly.
Yes, we do.
And that's been a key thing, I think, for, again, this like family sense. So thinking public health beyond just like, am I sick or not? I guess health really, am I sick or am I not? Outside of the biomedical model, and more about these kind of social relationships, some intangible things that I think have actually been the cause of so much success in this program.
Yeah, to segue a little bit, one of SPPH's initial connection points with GH Plus and the Central was really through CoCare's survey a couple of years ago, where there was a survey of the unhoused population that I got to participate in before I was even at SPPH. But SPPH was very involved in that and housed a lot of the data for it all. And so a lot of the people that y'all get to interact with in the unhoused population here on the island, and some of which that are now clientele here at David's house, those are people that we get to talk to and get their stories. And one of the common threads I recall from that one of the things that really was illuminated in that was that a common form of suffering in the narratives that were coming out of people on the streets in Galveston was isolation, social isolation. Mm-hmm. One of the things that really determined whether or not someone was able to maintain some stability in housing or just fall through the cracks and end up on the streets entirely was whether they had someone that they could rely on, that they could depend on, often in the form of family or friends or things like that. And the more isolated someone was, the faster they were to travel through that pipeline. Y'all do a lot, I know, to work on that in terms of intra-communal connection here, of creating a family culture. I'd love to hear more about kind of and you mentioned it with Arlen's, but the ways and the goals that y'all might have for creating a form of community with the broader Galveston community as well, and ways to reconnect those people back to being citizens and residents of Galveston as a whole.
So today we have Moody Church. They're coming to cook. It's one of their clubs. I can't remember which club it is, but they're coming to cook, and they're gonna sit and talk with the residents. I think it'll be like 14 or 15 people, because I'm always telling people, our population, our family here, a lot of them don't have family that talks to them. So I'm always inviting people over to talk to them, because they will sit, talk to you, and it makes them feel good that they have someone that they feel cares besides me. Besides Mike.
That's exactly right. That matters.
Because some people feel that once they have a room, the problem is over.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when everything really starts. Now, we have some people that couldn't even sleep in a room by themselves because they were scared that something's going to happen. They didn't feel comfortable. So it's just starting on their house.
Yeah.
And working through all their trauma to get them comfortable with, I am good enough to work. I can keep a job. I talk to family here all the time because they're scared not to have a job. They haven't had a job in 11 or 12 years.
Right.
She said, what if I get fired? Or what if I lose my job? Or what if something happens? Then what I'm going to do? So they're kind of scared to move forward.
Yeah.
But they're paying their 30%.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they need to do, but they're still scared because they haven't had to do this in a long time.
That's right. And in some ways, Lee and I, in some ways, this is not how we view our job, but like we get paid to love people and to care for people, right? And so there's something beautiful, again, about what I think Lee has created here, that's a space that's really open to the community. You said from day one, you don't want this to be like a locked away sort of prison kind of thing where we're detached from the island.
That door, that gate should still be open.
Exactly.
It's open. I want people to feel welcome. Come visit.
Yes. And this is unusual where we're sitting right now, but I have never been here during the week. I'm just dropping random times where there haven't been 3, 4, 5, 10 people standing out here mingling. But Austin, to your point, it also transcends just this family. So, Family Service Center is a key part of what we're doing here. Those counselors have been instrumental in people moving forward. Obviously, UTMB is involved with that. And then, outside groups, GPD every once in a while people will come and drop off food sometimes, which
Last week they did.
has the potential for a lot of our folks when they're on the streets to be an adversarial relationship. So you think about the healing that can happen there through that kindness on their parts. Lee mentioned some of the churches, and it's not just Central and Moody, but I know B'nai Israel, after they had a big bar mitzvah, came and dropped off food and ate with folks.
Unitarian Church.
Unitarian Universalists who are just up the street have been a part of that. So really this has been almost like a hub, or like the center of a wagon wheel kind of thing that's linking to all these outside groups and saying, we're better together. And it's what I love again about this program is it's not just like the folks here need the outside people, but what we're learning is like actually the outside needs these folks too, and that's an important bilateral relationship.
Yeah. Lee, you mentioned something about the work starts once they arrive here. It's not something where it finishes, and that's connected back to a housing first model. I'd love for you to explain for the people that might be watching this that don't know the first thing about the theory and science and research behind healing people from the trauma of homelessness, what the housing first model is.
Yes. Housing first means that we're going to accept you wherever you are, period. There's going to be no judgment. We're going to love you, and we're going to work toward how can we transition forward. It's not about staying where you are. Okay, you're on drugs now. How are we going to work to get you off of drugs or get you at a place to where you're going to forward your life and be a better, maybe not better, it's not a good word, but be a contributing factor to society.
Mm-hmm. And more fulfilled internally too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's funny, we have a young man here, and he tells me, Mr. Lee, I'm down to 1 bag of Kush a week.
That's actually a big deal, right?
It's progress.
Instead of 5 bags a day, now you're down to 1 a week.
It's massive.
And I could actually say, I just was trying to call one of the counselors at the clinic to say, I don't know what you did. Because sometimes it's hard, even for me, after having, this is what I do, I love what I do, but sometimes you get frustrated, but someone can connect with someone, Miss Lori, that's what it is, Lori Price. And she said, I'm working with him, I promise you, just give me a moment. And I wanted to call her today. I said, I don't know what you did.
So this same individual also would have some difficulty regulating emotions, big emotions in particular too. And so the other day we were walking, and he's got in his backpack, he's working with OT, Dr. Lloyd Pryor, and he's got his levels of, or his zones of regulation kind of thing, and we're talking through it. So, but that's coming from a friendship. It's not like a clinical relationship. It's like this deep friendship that Dr. Pryor and then this client have kind of formed with each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually that belonging piece again is what's leading to his movement towards sobriety, having a place to be, not get sober first and then come here. But the model that he's talking about is you just walk on as you are.
Yeah, and we loved you through it. We love you to cursing us out of it.
Exactly.
It's just honest emotion.
Yeah, emotion, addiction, mental health crises, even employment. You don't require people to have a job before they come here, right? And stuff.
And the data from the housing first stuff is stunning. So the kind of national, Houston has employed this, the entire state of Utah has employed this, New York was incredibly successful. So the recidivism, people ending up in the streets a year for being housed, it's like less than 10%, which is a stunning number when we're thinking about all the changes that are happening. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Emergency room visits go down significantly. Interactions with law enforcement go down significantly. Substance use may still be present, but often is less, like Lee was talking about, or moves to later in the day. It's not the first thing I have to do when I wake up in the morning because I have a mental health breakdown. Is less frequent kind of thing. So it's not the cure-all, but there's studies that show it's successful. And the key thing that I love about Housing First is everyone is housing ready, which is what Lee is.
Yeah.
It's not this kind of preparatory process. Everyone is ready to be housed with the proper support systems in place. It's great.
For the family here, I always ask them, well, what makes you use, or what triggered you to use this? Always some type of stress, or some type of feeling uncomfortable. And I noticed when we're all laughing and this and that, everybody's here. Nobody's in the back, nobody's hiding, nobody's getting high in their room. They all are here. We even have movie night. Everybody's here.
And so how do we begin to think about that as public health, right?
Yes.
Like movie night is public health. I think that's critical. Eating meals together as a family is public health work, right? And I love that shift that Lee's helping us kind of see more clearly.
Yeah, social determinants and all that.
All that stuff.
Everything is public health.
Yes,
I love it.
right. It's beautiful.
I'd love to talk a little bit also about just y'all's perspectives from the position of getting to see the over time the repair and healing that's happened in the lives of people here in the community. I'd love to understand your perspective on how relationships, as you mentioned, with medical professionals, about how making that's something that's not like this clinical or this hierarchical dynamic, but something that's deeply relational has had an impact on just the healing journey for these people.
See, that's the one thing that always touches me, so I try to stay away from it because it makes me cry. The students in the clinic are so loving, and they're that way all the time. It's not just, I'm waiting to catch somebody have attitude. They're so loving all the time and so welcoming. The appointments for the doctor in Houston, they don't even go to half the time the second visit. People here, I have to go to the doctor. Can you take me? Can you make sure I get there? And that means a lot. You have your foot about to come out of something and you not want to go to the doctor. You have high blood pressure and you don't want to go to the doctor. Here, everybody wants to go to the doctor. They're making sure. Sometimes we don't have appointments. I say, well, if you don't have an appointment, if you don't have an appointment, you can't go. Let me go call Al and see if they can fit you into something. Now you want to go because you have a headache. Okay, we get you some aspirin. So it's that love that they give there that it is so overwhelming to me. And I'm trying to get a group from Houston. It's the not the coalition. I work there too. I can't think of the name, but they have a little clinic team. They always have an attitude. I'm trying to get them to come to Grace Clinic to see how they do stuff. Come to Central, see how they run the clinic. And we won't have that same problem in Houston that they have because we have to track the people down. They need mental health needs, so we're tracking them down.
That's right. And the transformation, I think, so Grace Clinic's been operating for 3-ish years or so, Austin. And so before that, listening to stories, we know this, when you don't have insurance, you're limited to either the free community clinic or the emergency department, right? Yeah. And a lot of our folks chose the emergency department route for a while. That breeds frustration because our folks are expecting the quality care that you get from a PCP in that moment. The ED docs are expecting emergency stuff, and so it's automatically set up for this adversarial kind of relationship. Yeah. And not anybody's fault, just that people are trying to use the systems that they can. And so UTMB among our community, pre-Grace Clinic, had a pretty bad reputation. Folks were willing to wait until things became so extreme they had no choice but to go to the emergency department rather than kind of preventative care. And so what's happened at Grace that Lee has alluded to is this repairing of relationships with folks now, trust the institution a little bit more. It's been transformational. And I think for the students and the docs, and I know students that have totally shifted their trajectory of where they were heading in medicine because of their experience at Grace Clinic. And one of the key things with that is in our morning huddle that we have there, they're really generous and allow me to kind of talk for a little bit. And I remind our students and our faculty every single week that this is not their place, right? Grace Clinic is not, we think of the clinic in a typical setting, it's this very sterile, I come in, I'm the guest. What we've done at Central and what Lee is doing here is flip that on its head. This belongs to the people who have called this church a home for a long time. And so how does that change the way that care is provided when you as the provider have to come in as the guest to meet sort of the social expectations of how this place runs? Yeah. You have a softer posture, right? You're more attentive to the needs of people, you're in the flow. And I think our healthcare outcomes are representative of that. Instead of expecting the population to conform to the way you're doing things, it's how do we become a part of what the population needs?
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, what do you think that the near-term goals are for Galveston Housing Plus? And what are the ways that you think, not only SPPH, obviously I'm curious for my own sake, but the Galveston community, public health professionals, or just anyone, the layperson, could participate in furthering and advancing those goals and supporting the Wolf Legalities?
We've been pretty blessed, but I think the biggest problem here would be able to help more people. Mm-hmm. For some reason, our numbers are not reflected as the number of homeless, unsheltered people that we have in Galveston.
What's the counter?
Yes, because our big count number was at 69.
It was under 100, which
it's insane.
Yeah. As part of that team, that was appalling and wrong. And
there were more than that at the church this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, anecdotally, also, just from people that collected it, we think that there's a serious problem with the actual collection data and what happened with the app that we're using. But yes, I mean, anecdotally, those numbers that are heading to the state, the people that fund this systemically in some ways, are not reflecting the reality of what's happening on the ground.
Yes, so that kills a lot of funding. Anything for, it should have, well, I had a team and we had 75 people, so I was, what's going on? And so, but I've been doing that for a long time in Houston, so that would be the main problem, getting the correct count to the authorities that count the unsheltered population in the city, because that's how you get the funding, that's how you get HUD funding and things of that nature. And I guess we have, a better understanding for the community that you're not just on drugs if you're homeless. Yeah. I still hear that a lot because I'm always outside going to talk to people, and they always think that you're on drugs or something going wrong. But we have a lot of degree individuals in our family that are homeless. It's not because of drugs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's mostly because of trauma. Yeah. Was all the trauma, some type of trauma.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what are some other examples of stigma that you might have seen? Like, I'll give an example. I hear a lot, as one that I think of when I think of stigma here in Galveston towards the unhoused population, that everyone is from somewhere else. That no one is a Galvestonian. As soon as they're on the street, they're from another place and they're othered in that way, and it justifies us not caring about them.
And that's not true as well. Here, out of our 18, 9 are from Galveston. Yeah. So it's 50%. And we tried not to put everyone from Galveston as best as we could to be fair. Right. We don't want to say, they people from Galveston. So that's not true as well. We do have individuals that come from other places. One young lady said she came here to die. She felt that her life was over, so she wanted to go to Galveston and die by the water. She's now published author. She's working on her second book, and she's in school.
Yeah. Amazing story. Yeah.
So we're doing great things. Now we got 3 individuals in school. So school changes lives, education changes lives.
Yeah.
So I'm always pushing that. So
Yeah.
they can never take that from you. So
Also, I think other stigma, I think mental health is another huge stigma too. I think we kind of have this Hollywood rendition of what Joe homeless kind of looks like, and it's the person that's on the street corner screaming or scary and violent and all of this. And that's not been in our experience. We do see, I think, high instances of mental health, but it's things like anxiety and depression. Because when you're living out in the summer and it's 1,000 degrees outside, like how are you not experiencing those things when you don't know where you're sleeping? So I think just reframing that conversation, and even our friends with more like acute things like schizoaffective disorders or whatnot, it's not this terrifying, scary, subhuman something. Like, these are our friends, right? And Brene Brown says that people are hard to hate up close, right? So it's kind of moving towards folks has been helpful in changing that. But I think that prevents more gaps in housing plus opportunities because of the NIMBY phenomenon, right? Of the not in my backyard. We love this thing, but I don't want these drug addicts or these mental health patients or another stigma piece. They'd rather be outside is one that I hear a lot of times, which I've yet to meet a person who says I'd rather. They don't want to be in a place that feels like prison, and I don't blame them for that, right? They don't want to be in a place where they're treated poorly or undignified. But given, like you said, a place that feels like home, you can make that. It's amazing how quick. How many folks do we have on the wait list when we have 18 rooms. 200 and something people for 18 rooms. So one, that shows you the need. Two, shows you the readiness of folks when a program like this exists. And so hopefully, through the success, we kind of think about this almost as like a beta testing or like a pilot program, where then we could look at some other instances of GH Plus kind of setting up different places.
Hope so.
Me too. Me too. So, and that I think is a stigma piece, and then Lee also alluded to funding is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get folks both public side, but also the private side through foundations, through individual giving. Homelessness is a social problem, right? We tend to think of it as an individual sort of disease, but it really says more about what kind of community is Galveston that we would allow folks to live outside, right?
Yeah.
So a social problem requires social collective kind of solution. And so for folks that do have extra income to give, you can go to ghplus.org, and there's a nice handy donate button, and feel free to give. And then that money is used, speaking for Lee, but and being part of the board, we take it really seriously, and those dollars are used really, really well, because every dollar is precious that comes in. So, that's an important piece too.
I think you touched on something I just want to highlight, is that all the research around homelessness, in particular, there's some secondary data analysis that aggregated in 2019 by researchers at University of Washington. And what they looked at was the stigma that we talk about with what causes homelessness, or the characteristics of people that live on the streets. And then they compared that geographically to see what variance there was. And what they found is that the things that we typically associate with people living on the street, for example, mental health crises or disorders in the form of like schizoaffective disorders, things like that, even social isolation, poverty, all that, those really just determine who becomes homeless. But when you look at the geographic variance, you can see the communities have vastly different levels of homelessness. And in that sense, it's a systemic problem that is rooted in how we as communities form ourselves.
Yep.
So in some ways, this is a way that, participation in what's happening at GH Plus and our relationship with our unhoused neighbors is a way for us to heal the things that are causing the problem itself in Galveston. So I think that's an important thing that you've y'all touched on in terms of the systemic nature of this problem.
And anecdotally, Houston, that's also adopted the housing first model. A veteran on the streets, I think what I read pre them adopting this, it was 700 and something days that you could expect from entering some kind of social service organization to receiving housing. That is now under 30 days.
Yeah.
Because of realtors and apartment complexes saying yes to this, to social service agencies saying, hey, rather than being a silo, we're actually going to work together. And it's okay if our name isn't on everything, because what's important is the individual that's getting the care that they need, right?
Yeah.
The mayor's office saying we're going to direct funds to be able to help this happen. All of that, is this kind of coordinated effort across agencies and groups, rather than sort of sole, we're going to save you kind of approaches to things. And that's been key, I think. So.
And not just in Houston, a city that has put a ton of money and resources into this, a lot of capacity, but Abilene, Texas, a city about the size of Galveston, a little bit bigger, but not too much. And with way less resources in Houston, has achieved the same kind of functional zero in 2021, where they don't have as many people entering. They don't have too many people entering homelessness that cannot be rehoused within 30 days. Yeah. They can, within 30 days, rehouse anyone in that system that becomes unsheltered. And that's the goal for a lot of the communities that have put in a lot of effort towards this kind of thing. But you're right, Michael. I think it is a testament to the way that the values that permeate our society take shape in the form of collaboration, in the form of connection, in the form of our perspectives on the people that are dealing with these kinds of crises as victims rather than perpetrators of something.
Exactly right.
So I agree.
Yeah.
We could talk about, we have a young lady here. She just graduated from Galveston Community College with her certificate in culinary arts. And she's still in school. She signed up to go in and make that associate's.
Yeah.
But
amazing.
Her trauma is her and her mother, they did drugs together.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom stays right next door. So she's about to graduate. She's going to take her last test, and her mom calls the police to tell her that she's no longer welcome at her house. Mm-hmm. The police comes here, so of course they're calling me on Zoom here because we've never had a police incident here, right. Ever. That would be the first one. Mm-hmm. But not even an incident. But the way she was broken down from that incident. She didn't even want to go to school to do her final. She didn't want to participate. So we talked through it. She went. She ended up getting in school for the final cooking or whatever. But she graduated, and it's just the resilience of having all that to go through, but still going through it and understanding it. Sometimes we just have to make those decisions to work through those relationships, no matter who it's with.
That's right. And if I can brag on you too, like you mentioned, there was the incident where she almost didn't graduate because the school said kind of, we're done at this point. Mm-hmm. Lee was able to call, and again, the power of relationships, right? And work out sort of an alternative plan for her to be able to take that final that still took whatever happened seriously. Right. But also allowed her to still complete her goals. And so again, I think that speaks to the power of having someone in your life that's an advocate that can step into these things.
Thank you. Yes.
So your role is just, it's so important what you do.
Yeah, we just understanding that everybody needs somebody.
Yeah.
And what if you have nobody and then you just messed up? Right. We're back to square one.
Yep. Yeah.
I couldn't see that. We went through too much. You're right at the door.
Right
at the door.
Right.
And we have a young man. He works 2 jobs. And I have to check on him all the time. It's like, you're losing so much weight. Because he rides the bike to these 2 different jobs. And he has, 5 kids by 2 different women. So he plays a lot in child support. So I'm trying to tell him, you need to go back to the court and talk to him about how much you pay. He was working, he had a nice paying job. So then he was paying this, but he can't afford that now.
Right.
So he's not going back. So we're working through that, but it's just still he tells me, well, those are my kids and I did that, so that's what they deserve. That's true, but you're not making that same money and you're killing yourself in the process. So sometimes it's helping them through life's problems. Yeah. To get them out of the situation that they're in, or letting them understand that, well, your kids are not going to love you any different because that money goes to the system because your kid's mom is getting some aid. So it's not you killing yourself for nothing because no matter what, she's going to get the same amount.
Right. But what a powerful counter story to laziness, self-centered, right? This is a guy who's busting his butt to work 2 jobs.
To try to provide for 5 kids.
First kids.
Yeah.
First kids to make that happen.
He hasn't missed a day of work yet because they let me talk to their managers because sometimes something may happen and be able to go with
Have the relationship, be the advocate. Yeah.
Exactly. So they always say, oh, he's the best worker we have. He's awesome and amazing. So I was trying to tell him, well, work part-time. He's trying to work 2 jobs full-time. That's just crazy. It's a good work ethic, but it's crazy.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's just, I wish the public could see more of what I see.
Yeah.
And see it more than what drives them. And sometimes it's just I had a bad incident or I did something or I just couldn't deal. Something.
Yeah. I think all the time we talk about support, a lot of the stories that I hear from folks are things that I did my junior, senior year of high school, you know what I mean? But I had parents that were like involved in my life, right? I had somebody who knew the principal or the school board, whoever. I had somebody who knew the deputy or the sheriff, like, you know, and so not having that safety net when a lot of people have made the same decisions that you and I have made. That's what we're trying to rebuild for folks is this place to fall, be caught. And they push that, right? Because they want to say, are you serious?
Right.
Do you really mean you're going to catch me?
Right.
So I'm going to test this and push this. And when it's this unconditional love piece, it's amazing what kind of transformation can come from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we have a nice art. Galveston in general, I still sometimes I'm in awe of the unsheltered population. They're rocking and rolling and they have a family within themselves. Like, that's still one of the most shocking things. You know, our homeless in Houston, you have your own gang members in the unsheltered population, and you can get stabbed. Those things do happen a lot there. Well, when I was there, it did.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Not because you were stabbed.
Right. So here, it's just the love within their community itself is a lot. It is a beautiful thing.
But I don't know about y'all. I feel like I did not truly understand generosity until I became friends with people who live on the streets. And their generosity taught me so much about what it means to be generous.
Here, especially. I have one young lady, she wants to give all her money away. No, come on. She feels, well, I was out there with them, I understand. You were out there with them, like how you move on and you have your place, you have to save your money. And I see her, no, you can't do that. We have to work on your own values. Well, they share with me. And one thing people may not understand, when we picked our 18, everybody was guilty that they got picked. They wanted other people to come, and that was just a conversation. Well, I understand. It just wasn't their time yet. This is for you. When we get to that place, they can come visit, but we have to work through this together. So this pushed them in the same way to come fill out and come wait. And when it's their time, it's their time. But that was a big thing here. Well, I feel so bad because I got it. How'd y'all pick me? And she found out I was guilty. Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I think this would be interesting too, is decision making in the house. It's not a kind of Lee is king, here's how it goes. How do decisions, there are some rules.
Yeah, there are some rules.
How do they come about those?
They make the rules themselves. So, like for curfew, I said, well, what time do y'all want to lock the doors? No one will be in and out. The first, they said 12 when we first started. 12, we just started, that didn't work too well. So we came back and they did it for 8. The 8, after 2 weeks, they said, well, that might be too early. They had another meeting, and now it's 10. It's been 10 ever since. There's been no problems. They respect the curfew, but they did that as a group.
It's beautiful.
I didn't want them, I don't lead like whatever I say goes. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Unless it's a disciplinary action, and now we have a team of 5. This is disciplinary committee, and they hear it out.
I love that.
Yeah. So
who makes up that 5?
That is.
Is it people from the residents, or is it?
No, there's 3 from Family Service Center, and 1 from clinic, and that's that.
That great.
So I wanted to make sure I didn't want anybody to feel that they were not heard. And at first it was just African American on the board, and someone that was not African American, I was having not a problem with, but they had a broke a rule, one of their rules that they made. And he said, well, how did I know you were be fair because you're black and the display kid was black? I said, sure, right. We're gonna fix that. So now it's a mixture. So we have 3 African American, 1 Hispanic, 1 white. So
Yeah, I love that intentionality.
Can I ask you, this is kind of a more abstract question, but one thing that you've tried to eliminate through this kind of effort is hierarchy. I'd love to just kind of hear your perspective on like how power is something that people have to navigate within your community, on the streets, stuff like that. Just like, because I think when we think of hierarchy, there's this natural inclination for many of us to kind of fall into that in our workplaces and everything. But we can also see in instances like this disciplinary committee how that's a destructive force that prevents people from getting along. And so I just kind of love to hear about like power, vulnerability, hierarchy, all that, how that relationship impacts things here and on the streets and everywhere else that you see it.
So it's important for me that everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
Because sometimes everybody is not a loud voice. Some people are softer voice, but you all deserve to be heard. Here, since you have natural born leaders and that people that are natural to take charge, I try to step and let them do the things themselves because that's just life. But you get instances where people see that they have power and try to take advantage of other people and stuff like that. That's when I have to step in and remove those barriers or things of that nature. We're always going to have people that are going to be in power because people are more boisterous in their personalities and things of that nature. So that's the natural thing. It's just important that no matter how boisterous somebody is, how they are not, everybody deserves to be respected and heard.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think sometimes the charitable model that many of us like experience, like it creates this gap, right, from hierarchy where I have, you need, and then it does something to you, I think psychologically, emotionally, all of that to feel like less than constantly. So this flipping, which another, I'm sure you guys talk about asset-based community development things, right? But that whole mindset of like, let's start with what's right with you and not with what's wrong with you. And then how does that inform our leadership? Like you said, power structures where this is a shared, maybe think of power as like force or something coming external sometimes when there is a communal sense of power or this more like generative sense of power that comes from sharing ideas. So what does it mean to hold that common with each other, shared decision making? And even I imagine, your disciplinary committee is a great example too. It's a group of folks. It's not just police saying this is the way that it shall be kind of thing.
Right. I want them to understand that I don't just make all the decisions. It's not me. It's going to be fair. I may think a certain way that you don't, or vice versa. Or sometimes how you are raised or culturally tend to think that way. So I had that in mind when he told me. I said, you're perfectly correct. So let's fix this. I want everybody comfortable with whoever they go before. And it's going to be honest. It won't be just me. It's no favoritism. I love everybody the same.
That's right. And that's raised up some leaders here that from when they were at Central previously, not that they were ever not leading, but were taking a much more passive kind of space. And so the environment here has allowed them to see, I actually have some kind of agency and control, and not control in like a negative way, but like I can influence and lead in this space. It's been really beautiful to watch people kind of blossom.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. So our program is up to 2 years. It is a housing program. So when we're doing assessments, we're trying to see where they are with employment, if they want to work, because sometimes people are not work ready. So once they're employed, they pay 30% of their income per month, and they get half of that back when they graduate. And when we say graduate, different people make different incomes. If you're coming in, you have a job offer of $70,000 a year. That has happened. Someone has had an offer that high. You won't be here 2 years. The purpose would be to get you 2 checks under your belt, and we're gonna find you somewhere nice to go. So it depends on the job. It depends on how much they're getting paid.
And we felt from the beginning it was important to have that because, like we said earlier, the practice of what is life going to be like outside of this place. So get in the habit of paying rent, But then we also recognize life happens afterwards. The car breaks down, the unexpected medical thing, the deposit on the new place that I'm moving into. So being able to get part of that back, half will go to sustain the program, but also half you can put away to pay that down payment on the electricity deposit, or even just go on a trip. Because I think, like, again, we're thinking about the social determinants. Like, what does it mean just to have leisure and to go pick up a hobby and do something when you've never been able to do that previously, right? So it's really no strings attached with that.
And there's lessons behind that as well, because if you haven't had a check in 10 years, and your first check, you're going to go blow it, and just everything and everything.
Yeah.
So it's working with them with that as well.
Forced savings mechanism.
That's to say, man, what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with that? And they've been having great hours when they start, so they can have a nice check, so you guys will put this up.
That's exactly sure, right. So I'd say 70,000 more than I make. That's a good deal right here. That's it.
Well, it shows the brilliance of our people, right? And this is what these folks are capable
Absolutely.
of. Yeah.
When given opportunity.
Exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. In terms of student involvement, there's some things that we've talked a little bit about, just the importance of connection, and of we talk about kind of the social aspects of things like this chess club that I came by on Sunday to run and everything. We talked about karaoke nights and things like that, where students or anyone can come and find a way to connect with people, make sure that they get to share their story outside of these walls, and also feel like they're just part of the greater Galveston community. They're really residents and neighbors with everyone here. So that's always like an important way. People want to give of their resources. I mean, it sounds like food donations and monetary donations are always welcome as well. But for public health professionals, I do think there's a lot of opportunity to help assist in what it means to share the narrative of what's happening here, with both not just quantitative data capture of like these are the numbers of XYZ, but also qualitative data capture of like what these stories are doing to what this program is doing in the hearts of people, internally and externally to the community members as well that are being interacted with. I mean, for example, whoever is the manager at Arlen's that you have a connection with there, what does it mean that they have a renewed understanding of what the potential for people on the streets here of Galveston really is? So I'd love to figure out ways that we can tackle that really abstract, difficult project together. I also think you know, Michael, you touched on this a little bit, but and Lee as well with the. But I think there's a cost to homelessness, not just to the individuals that are suffering through it, but to the community itself. It is a wound in communities that we need to address and treat as such. And so, what do you do to a wound? You care for it. You try and heal it. You tend to it. And I think one of the first things we need to understand is, besides just the number of people that are here, what are the other ways that this problem that we're experiencing in Galveston is hurting our community? So, I mean, things like financial capture, of like value capture. What is the loss that we're experiencing as a community in these systems, the hospital system, the ER, and police services to service this population that are experiencing dire circumstances every time they're experiencing anything because of the extremity of their living situation. I also, I think that's a good thing to do financially as well. I'd love to figure out how to tackle that, because that's a really difficult thing.
So mine, like non-public health side, did just a brief, non-official kind of thing.
Yeah.
What from the services that are being provided in Galveston, including what a hospital bed costs, what a night in jail costs. My non-official numbers that the county could save somewhere around $6 million a year.
A year?
If it adopted a Housing First that funded Housing First too. So we're putting money into this. This is just savings the delta, moving from sort of tending to, we're just treating kind of downstream issues rather than moving upstream and helping with that.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be fascinating to look at some of those hard data and like, because again, we live in a world where money talks, right? So if we want to see some of these changes we've been talking about larger, but what could the county do with them for $6 million amazing things, right? You think about infrastructure or whatever could happen with an extra $6 million a year in the budget. Huge.
Absolutely.
So how can public health help us tell that story and look at what money could happen?
Absolutely. And I think there are students in our faculty have a lot of expertise in that kind of research, that kind of data analysis, and really assist with that kind of stuff. I also think in terms of like advocacy efforts, we have students that are they do their practicums as lobbyists for the state legislature. We have all kinds of student activities that come to fruition. And so, like, political activism, civic activism, and advocacy are an important part of what public health touches on. And I think there's ways that we can advocate for our community as a whole that would benefit the unhoused population that are trying to escape situations and feel more safe and secure and healthy. One thing that we've talked about a lot is we have a PhD student that's working on shade studies of the islands post-hike. What is the tree cover of the islands? And in the summer, we all know how brutal it is to be out and about, especially when you have no shade and everything. It's really tough when you have no shelter, no home. And we frequently in the summertime and on hot days have to deal with cooling center openings and stuff like that for extreme weather circumstances. That's something that city resources are going in to solve a problem that we could possibly solve just passively by improving the built environment of our community, right, and to help do that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of ways that we could talk about not just people in David's Place, but the broader community that David's Place is serving, and the Galveston Central Church is serving, and Grace Clinic. I think there's a lot of ways that students could get involved. What it takes is imagination and a little bit of creativity and a lot of collaboration, which is why I'm really grateful that we were able to sit down and talk like this and share these stories and hear what's happening. That's important.
We need help. We need the community's help. The program would not be able to run without the love and help from the community and without additional financial resources. If we're moving with the thought process, we're trying to eradicate any barriers that our family members have so they can become fruitful and prosperous. Those are outfits for jobs or making them feel totally comfortable in an interview. Sometimes a young lady asked me to get her a wig, and we got her a wig, she got the job. So I was trying to get every woman a wig here. So those things cost. And any additional help that can be sent our way, we will greatly appreciate. And you're always welcome at our house.